Is that a new tune? Have we heard that one before?
Newish.
Newish. I like it.
All our music now brought to you by Phantoms.
That's the band, yeah?
That's the band, yeah.
Okay, so we had somebody, McFury, sent us an email yesterday, and McFury said, I'm listening to the April 15th show.
Oh, that's a good tune.
You got to let me know who that is.
Stand Up and Wait. Yeah,
Stand
that's
Up
the
and
name
Wait.
of the song. Yeah, good song.
Okay, there you go. That's John Hicks, everybody. Ryan Jesperson with you. It's June 22nd. It's Wednesday. We've got a great show coming up for you today. Philippe Fournier joining us in just a few moments. He'll check in live from La Belle Province from Quebec. He's the founder. He's the creator of 338 Canada. And when we were briefly sort of interacting yesterday, we don't like to plan our segments out too much. We like to plan them out just enough so they have some structure, so they have value to you, but at the same time, so we don't kind of hammer down everything. Where we talk about here? What do we talk about? We like it to be candid. But he made one quick point, and an important one with regards to how he'd like to be introduced. And he said, I am not a pollster.
Yeah.
He said, I'm a poll analyst. And so what he does is he breaks down or he analyzes polls that have been conducted to help us, Canadians, better understand the political landscape in the country. So he takes a look at the numbers and he finds out what he can dig out of those. And we're going to talk about Quebec. We'll talk about Ontario. We'll talk about Alberta today. We'll talk about the federal political landscape, whatever pops up in the live chat on our hashtag RealTalkRJ and otherwise. Who knows? Maybe John will stick his foot in the door and say, I've got a question. Dang it.
You love... Get into politics, John. You're always trying to push me in.
You'd be everything that'd be good about politics. Hey, the big smile, the public service, the positive attitude, the can-do spirit.
Free Brussels sprouts for everyone.
See? Already. You've got to learn how to lose your first election, and you've just gone and done that.
Kids
now
would hate me.
Take lessons from that. People would say he's onto something. They would say he's ahead of the trends. He's a maverick. Coming up a little bit later in the broadcast, Irene Morin will join us. Just yesterday it was announced that she's, we're going to focus on our hometown here, but it's a bigger picture story or concept idea. She's the first elder in residence for the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. How cool is that? From Enoch Cree Nation, she's an elder there. Irene will be joining us live in about half an hour, along with the Chamber's president and CEO, Jeffrey Sundquist. I'm curious to know, how does this relationship work? What does her mandate look like? What does she believe that she brings to the table? I loved our conversation with Shae Bird yesterday. Yeah. Shae is the CEO of Indigenous Tourism Alberta. And he talked about an Indigenous mindset being, in some circumstances, you have to listen to the interview if you didn't catch it. We tweeted out a quick sort of a snippet of that interview and the link to the full talk. But he talked about the mindset being different, the approach to business being different, the motivation being a little bit different, relationship building being so important to First Nations, Indigenous communities that are looking at working with partners. Now, Shae obviously talking in the specific context of tourism, but I think that the concept probably can widen out or broaden out, and to cover the general ideas or maybe the concepts around relationship building in business as a whole. So Elder Irene Morin coming up. Looking forward to that. MyJasper Memories will head out to the mountains, and we'll get to some of your correspondence as well today. The show happens support of fantastic sponsors like our friends at Bitcoin Well. And we've been telling you this week about this. They want to make it easier than ever for you to buy Bitcoin online. And so you can buy Bitcoin using e-transfer. It's the fastest and safest way to do it. And if you're wondering, well, why? How do I know it's the fastest and safest way to do it? Just go to their website, bitcoinwell.com, and it explains why. The benefit, it takes like 2 minutes to set up your first buy, and then every purchase after that can be done directly from your banking app. It's the ultimate one-touch Bitcoin buying experience. Now, don't take your financial advice from me. I'm not telling you to buy Bitcoin. I'm not telling you to sell Bitcoin if you have it. I'm just telling you, if you have questions or if you want to buy it and you want it to be easier, you can sign up to buy with e-transfer at bitcoinwell.com today. You can find all the links to all our sponsors under the appropriate tab on our website, RyanJasperson.com.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Stepping on your toes there with the intro.
I like that. You're keeping me moving.
Sorry.
Ta-ta today, Junior. says Adam Sandler. Probably that movie was probably 30 years old now.
Oh, great movie.
You ever get into you ever sort of get into that space, that zone where you realize that all your pop culture references are starting to get, maybe not, you're more of a young buck than me, but you realize that sort of your references are starting to be a little bit dated and maybe they land with fewer and fewer people?
My jokes aren't valid anymore.
My jokes are a little dated. They require context and even worse, explanation. Yeah. You and I both pretty excited. I check my email, typically try to check it out right before we start the show. And obviously we do this live every morning, which is perfect. Although we know that most of you check it out later in the day, but it infuses a little energy to this. And I love this. Got an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com this morning from Sandy, who says, her family, she says, we're trying to register for the Real Talk Golf Classic if possible. She says, I see that ticket sales have closed. Is there any way you still have room for us? So I sent a quick text to our tournament director. I said, can we reopen registration briefly?
You're going to nudge her in.
To make sure that Sandy and her family get in there.
Wow.
And obviously the reason, well, number one, because the more the merrier. And number two, all of the proceeds raised will fund the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship. And so we are briefly reopening registration. We've got to obviously send our final numbers to the golf course today, the tournament tomorrow, if you can believe it. We're super excited about that. But I'm stoked to know that Sandy's going to be there with her group. And Sandy, I'll keep an eye out for you to give you a warm welcome. You feeling good about it? I know that there's some rain in the forecast for tomorrow, and so some people are.
They said that last Friday too, and it was gorgeous. So I don't believe it.
So I'm going to try to manifest. I'm going to try. Maybe we can all try to manifest. I'm thinking like a huge thunderstorm, like a real, sort of a real show tonight.
Oh, okay.
Through the overnight, let the sky do what it needs to do,
or even early morning on Thursday, get it over with.
Yeah, get it over with. Let the course dry itself out, and then we'll hit it running with our 2:15 p.m. shotgun start.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good one. Philippe Fournier coming up in just a moment. He's going to be talking Quebec, and we've got this email from Jillian. Jillian's been on the show before, Jillian Essien, and you know that she's from Montreal. She lives in Alberta now, and I loved our conversation with her just a short time ago. She sent us an email, and Jillian, this is like an essay. You know that, but it's so good. So I've been staring at it, and I'm going, I don't know if I can read this whole thing, but I want to get into it with Philippe. So let me tee this up. She says, and she starts, there's a preamble, which is some of the funniest stuff in the whole document. She says, if I have one thing to contribute to the Quebec versus Alberta debate, it's this. Years ago, I was seated on a plane flying to Alberta ahead of a potential move, and it was then, as I felt that this flight was taking just a bit too long, that I realized which prairie Alberta was. She says, I thought Alberta was where Manitoba is. I'm not dumb. She says that I thought about it for like 4 seconds. I'd know that Alberta, having the Rocky Mountains, would have to be the prairie next to BC, but never ever in my previous life as a Quebecer did I spend those entire 4 seconds thinking about Alberta. She says, I share this anecdote because some Albertans seem to really hate on Quebec and even think that Quebec has it in for Alberta. Shae, she says, Quebec doesn't even know who you are. Sorry about my French. I tried. That might be worse, she says, but the point I'm trying to make is nothing Albertans feel from Quebec is intentional or aimed at this province. In fact, Alberta could learn a lot from the cool kid, Quebec, if they just stopped envying this cool kid who doesn't even know that they go to the same school. That from Jillian. Are we ready to rock with Philippe? With 338 Canada? Okay, cool. Philippe Fournier created 338 Canada. It's a statistical model of electoral projections that cover elections in Canada. So he's not a pollster. He'll explain this to us, but he's a poll analyst, like I said. He's just recently begun writing for Politico. You may have read his work there after years of writing for Maclean. And he also writes en français for L'Actualité magazine. And he's also a college teacher in physics and astrophysics. Joining us this morning live from Montreal. It's good to see you.
Bonjour, Ryan. What a pleasure to finally speak with you.
I know. We've been looking forward to this for a while, but you've had a lot going on, including your course load. I love this. If I get to a point in my life where the fourth sentence of my bio is also professor of astrophysics, I would feel like I was doing all right. How was the school year for you this year? Were you like back in the classroom? Are you still doing it by Zoom? What's that been like?
We were back in classroom with masks and restrictions. And of course, many students weirdly had the COVID right around the midterm time. So that was something to deal with this semester, but it's finally over. a little later than usual, but it went well, and I'm very glad it's over so I can concentrate on other stuff now.
Yeah, this is an ongoing conversation, I think, with Canadians across the country where we acknowledge that COVID is not finished with us. COVID is still running its way through. We still see people we know that are getting sick. We know that people are still in hospital, yet society writ large functioning sort of in a way that might edge back toward what would qualify as normal in late 2019, early 2020. You don't want to call it normal yet because people justifiably push back on that. But when I look around Alberta, I can make certain observations about where we're at. When you look around Quebec, when you look around Montreal right now, how would you assess the inching back towards some semblance of normal? Where are you at with that?
I would say that we're at the same point. Maybe we didn't get the same path to get there, but just this week now we have, there's no mask mandate in public transit, which was the last one left, except maybe for medical clinics and hospitals, of course. But I don't think we'll remove masks in hospitals and medical clinics for perhaps the rest of our lives. I think that's the new normal. Yeah. But the restrictions in Quebec are lifted right now. And so I think we're back to normal-ish.
I don't know if you heard, I read the preamble to one of our audience members' email. She's originally from Montreal. She's living in Alberta now, and she's kind of joking around saying that, Albertans kind of have this complex. And there's even a micro complex in how Calgarians perceive Toronto. I say that as someone who grew up in Calgary. But the Alberta perspective on Quebec is an interesting one. And she was saying there's actually a lot that Alberta could learn from Quebec. There seems to be this interesting comparison in Canada that doesn't necessarily exist between, Saskatchewan and Nova Scotia or something like that. Alberta and Quebec have an interesting relationship, don't they?
Yes, and I'm very careful here where I tread because you're going to get me in trouble. But what she said about not knowing where Alberta is or what Albertans are, there's a lot of apathy here in Quebec towards the rest of Canada. But it's not antipathy, it's apathy, indeed. So the mood has changed here, and we'll talk about the numbers, of course, on sovereignty and independence. It has moved a lot in recent years, but it's not as if Quebecers were suddenly very involved with the Canadian Federation and very in love with whatever's going on in Ottawa. So I think this is what we have in common with many Albertans, politically at least.
Well, people's memories, some of them may go back to the mid-1990s, or they may go back to a time where, referendum time, where the very future of Canada, certainly the future of Quebec, was up for debate. It was in the air, to be determined, and by a hair, Canada essentially stayed intact. What do we know about where attitudes are from Quebecers present day?
Well, early this month, the CAQ, with, of course, the October election in mind in Quebec, recruited two new candidates. One is Bernard Drainville, a former PQ cabinet minister from 10 years ago when he was in government with the Parti québécois. And the other is Caroline Saint-Hilaire, who is a TV personality, but used to be an MP for the Bloc Québécois. And so the rumor mill went around saying, okay, is the CAQ facing a sovereigntist shift? Is it facing more an independence shift? And we had two new polls, one last week and one this morning that was published regarding sovereignty. And again, overwhelmingly, Quebecers are not in favor of sovereignty. And so the Main Street poll that was from 2 weeks ago, 67% would vote against a referendum on sovereignty. And this morning, Léger has 61 or 62, depending on how you distribute the undecided. So sovereignty in Quebec is not dead. It will never die because it's a project that many people in Francophone Quebec hold dear. But, to get there, you need 50% plus one, and they're not even close to that yet. And not only that, Ryan, but the vehicle to transport sovereignty, to promote sovereignty, the Parti québécois right now is in single digits in voting intentions. And the CAQ, even though many sovereigntists are in the CAQ is against sovereignty. And so it's not an issue right now. It always comes up. It rears its head from time to time. But it's really not an issue right now. Of course, that could change in the future if the feds provoke Quebec or anything like that.
I was going to ask you about that. Do you think that it would take a specific issue, or do you think that a political party could leverage or twist a certain issue to maybe ramp up sentiment around separation? I mean, is that still a legitimate potential outcome?
It's a very interesting question, but if we look at the data closely, Francois Legault is the most popular premier of the last 50 years, according to polls. More popular than Lucien Bouchard, more popular. I mean, you have to go back to René Lévesque, basically. And still, even with his own party, a majority would vote no to a sovereignty referendum. So they like this new nationalism where we reaffirm Quebec identity within Canada. And of course, we like to pick fights with Ottawa, sometimes for good reason and sometimes for electoral reasons. So if that's good enough for them, I think it will be very hard for a hardcore sovereigntist party to go in there and promote independence, because the Parti Québécois does it, has done it for 50 years, and right now they're in the dumps. We project one PQ seat in the fall election. So many things would have to happen, and I don't see that in the near future.
One seat. It's almost
One seat.
I mean, I don't actually mean what I'm about to say, but as the politician that wins that one seat, you almost wish you would have lost, right?
Well, he's Pascal Bérubé in Matane-Matapédia, so down the St. Lawrence. He's a very good local MNA, very popular local MNA, and he indicated very clearly and publicly he does not want to be PQ leader after the election, whatever happens. But he is going to have to rethink that if the PQ indeed only wins one seat. We have to remember how dramatic and how quick things can change in Quebec. 10 years ago, it was the Maple Spring. Jean Charest's government was about to face defeat, and the Parti Québécois took power. And right now, we have the Parti Québécois in single digits, facing perhaps the daunting task of having only one seat in the National Assembly.
Okay, you and I are supposed to talk about 6 different stories across the country, but I'm fascinated. This one catches my interest. What can I say? And I want to do Jillian's email some justice. I mean, it's amazing. It's just long, but here's from the body of it. So the CAQ, the Coalition Avenir Quebec, right? This party, this sort of so-called Quebec nationalist party. Jillian says the CAQ has a couple major hiccups to face. Indigenous leaders feel that this Bill 96, Philippe, maybe we can get into that. Bill 96 steps on their rights, but the party's open to working with them because it's only the Anglophones that they hate. And tech companies are crying foul as well. She says, imagine recruiting people from all around the world, but in 6 months, they need to know French well enough to communicate in the workplace and access services in the province. That's not a long time to develop fluency. She says, but I will credit the CAQ. She says, this is some great nation building. Separation, like the Parti Québécois is still chasing, will never happen. Legault and the CAQ, however, have realized that there's no need for actual political sovereignty. Why separate when you can build yourself a true French nation and make Canada pay for it? What do you think?
And right there, you have the reason why François Legault is the most popular premier in the last half century and why he's going to crush the next election unless a major scandal. And I'm talking about perhaps a briefcase full of cash with a high definition video of a cabinet minister. I mean, we haven't seen this in Quebec. Usually in Quebec, elections are very competitive. At least in my lifetime, all elections except maybe Robert Bourassa in 85, we have to go back into the mid 80s. Elections are very competitive. But this time around, I mean, I'm making projection. There's 125 seats in the National Assembly. My last projection had the CAQ at 100 seats. And you had the Liberals struggling, maybe the Liberals winning the western half of Montreal, maybe 18 seats. You have left-wing Québec solidaire with maybe a half dozen seats, and the Parti Québécois with 1. And so the landscape has changed. It has changed very fast, which is, again, if I may stress this, the last 3 elections in Quebec, you had 3 parties competing for it, 3 different winners. We haven't seen this much in Canada, in the history of Canada, that 3 different parties win 3 different consecutive elections. And so, but this time around, François Legault has found the recipe. And for now, at least his coalition, because it is a coalition, a lot of people in there that don't agree with each other, but they agree that they want power. And so sometimes when you work that out, I mean, the UCP is also a coalition. I think there's more infighting right now.
Yeah.
But they could learn from the CAQ for sure.
Yeah, I was literally just going to make that move. I appreciate you segueing us along because I wonder if there are certainly some. I mean, that's the battle in Alberta right now. That's the challenge for the Conservatives, isn't it? For the government right now to try to make its way through a leadership race. Hopefully, use that leadership race if you're their strategist to sell memberships, generate interest, and ultimately land on a leader that that can keep the party together. You know, the social conservatives, the so-called right wing, that's important if you want to win an election. And then, of course, those relatively urban or so-called progressive or moderate conservatives as well. We haven't announced this yet, but tomorrow at this time, we'll be talking to leadership hopeful Rebecca Schultz, a former cabinet minister under Jason Kenney. A lot of people would put her as a front runner in this race, maybe alongside Michelle Rempel-Garner if and when she declares. And maybe Travis Taves gets a nod. Danielle Smith, Brian Jean, we'll see. There's a lot of names in there. What are you paying attention to? Let's talk about the UCP first, and then we'll talk about the opposition NDP.
Well, the UCP, I mean, for a year and a half, the NDP has been not only leading in polls, but dominating in polls and voting intentions. And I never, had an idea that the NDP would sweep the next election. But when we saw the latest polls after Jason Kenney resigned, or at least, after he announced that he would resign, I'm not sure what's going on there. But the tables have flipped, and we have the latest two polls have the UCP at 42% and the NDP at 40% of voting intentions. And the electoral map in Alberta is such that the NDP cannot just tie the UCP. It has to win the popular vote by at least 4 or 5 points to win enough seats. Because the NDP, as you know, I'm not teaching anything here, but they probably will sweep Edmonton. They will win chunks in Calgary. They will win maybe Lethbridge, maybe Banff, but that's not enough to win an election. You have to sweep Calgary, and you have to win some rural ridings. And right now, the UCP is still dominating those regions. And so the UCP could lose the popular vote by as much as 3 or 4 points and still win the most seats. And so if they remain united, they will be a force to be reckoned with, I think, regardless of who is leader, but we'll have to wait and see on the data.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and we'll talk about Pierre Poilievre in just a little bit, and I want to pick your brain on a couple other things as well. Justin Trudeau, and maybe whether or not he'll either make it to the next federal election or if you think he's going to run. I don't think he is, but there's a lot of time between now and then. Are you seeing anything that gives you any indicator with regards to which direction you think that members of the United Conservative Party might take this movement? Like, if you start talking about Danielle Smith as an example, a lot of people are saying, hey, she could be a formidable candidate. I mean, that's a real move, right? Travis Taves, for example, the current finance minister, politically not he's hardly bombastic. A lot of people, I don't say this disrespectfully, don't even really know who he is. He's just kind of this steady candidate. But you look at, he released his campaign, did it virtually on horseback with mud all over his shirt from his ranch. I mean, he's sending that message, right? And then you got the urban candidates. What are you seeing happen?
Well, I have a question for you, Ryan.
Sure.
Is Danielle Smith running to be the Wild Rose Independence Party leader? Because I follow her on Twitter, and I've read her stuff. It seems like she wants to lead a separatist party in Alberta, and I'm not sure UCP members. I mean, there's a demand for that, and for sure there's a clientele for that. But is it the critical mass of voters in Alberta? Do they want a separatist party? Because as a voter in Quebec, I would tell them, be very careful what you unleash in there, because it could cause more trouble than to bring any goodwill towards yourself. But what's going on there?
It's a fair question you ask, Philippe, and it's an important one. And if I'm advising her campaign, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's some red meat there for this, the socially conservative base or the right wing base. And that's fine. I mean, she has experience leading a party that occupied that spot on the political spectrum. And if you look back, I mean, it was 10 years ago, which obviously is like an entirely different political career. A decade is huge. But she was trending toward the premier's office until the Lake of Fire thing and the 3 years that followed and the floor crossing, and everybody knows that story. But I would just say this, which is basically what you just reiterated. I think that there are hundreds of thousands of moderate, middle-of-the-road conservatives that hold values like business-friendly legislation, like small or, lean government. I mean, there's sort of like these conversations we could have. But I'm not sure how those people would feel about, the government, its first order of business being apologizing to pastors who were incarcerated because they refused to stop getting 1,000 people together during the height of a pandemic. I'm not sure people want to see the premier on their knees apologizing to those pastors. And I'm not sure that a lot of people that do business nationally and internationally want a bunch of drum banging and noise around Alberta sovereignty. I don't think that the average middle-of-the-road person is looking for that from their government. If that is what they were looking for, the continued bombastic fight against Ottawa, then I don't think that Jason Kenney would be in as much trouble as he is right now.
That is fair. I really don't know where this is going to go because, of course, I look at polling, but polling on leadership races is so hard because you have to poll a very tiny percent of the population, a very specific demographic. And so I'm not sure the polls that we have right now are really reliable or have any predictive value of what's going on. I also wonder, Brian Jean has experience. Brian Jean started early. He still has a base. He was recently elected quite easily as well. But again, if you're the UCP, are you just content of winning the rural areas and barely making it against the NDP? I'm not sure there's much unity in there. But then again, I'm sorry your listeners will be, look at that Laurentian elite Quebecer telling Albertans what they think. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just describing the data. Let's remember, however, that Rachel Notley, although she lost for 3.5 years ago, let's remember that she got more votes in raw numbers than in 2015. And so her base will be motivated to vote regardless of who is leader of the UCP. And so if the UCP has a depressed vote or depressed, we saw what happened in Ontario. Did you see that Liberal vote? Did you see that turnout rate at 42%? A low turnout usually favors the incumbent. I'm not sure a low turnout would favor the UCP in this case in the election of May next year.
Okay. Let's talk federally before we run out of time here, Philippe. Obviously, you keep an eye on what's going on, not just in the operations of government, not just with the Justin Trudeau Liberals, but of course with the opposition as well. A leadership race there. And Pierre Poilievre appears to be... but hey, let me just be fair here for a second. It's not like we're taking a look at a bunch of stuff that's set in stone, a bunch of stuff where the concrete has dried. So people like me will sit here and say, he appears to be running away with this thing. And then people will say, well, you're the one that's reiterating or furthering the narrative. So is he running away with this thing?
If the numbers that we have and that they publish are true, of course, and there are some questions, I'm not saying it's a complete lie, but perhaps it was inflated, it will be very hard to beat Poilievre, especially considering that, he's the only one of his kind. And so, and usually social conservatives, which would vote for Leslyn Lewis, for instance, or Roman Baber, demographically, they would lean towards Poilievre and not towards someone like Jean Charest. Jean Charest, is a formidable politician. We had him in Quebec. Of course, he has his opponents in Quebec, his detractors in Quebec, but the talent of this man politically and in debates, we saw him deconstruct Bernard Landry in 2003 and then Mario Dumont in 2007. It is a pure political talent. However, right now, I think he's running into a brick wall because he hasn't faced someone like this in his career. And especially he's not talking to voters that are as motivated to vote for as Pierre Poilievre. Jean Charest would crush a progressive conservative party leadership right now. But this party, it doesn't exist anymore. And my students who are adults have never lived through the PC era. Yeah. It's been a while since that party doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and sort of like what does progressive conservative even mean anymore, which is a fair question. So can Pierre Poilievre run away with the Conservative Party of Canada's leadership and then run away with the federal election? He's a hell of a politician, very good at what he does. A lot of people are going, well, I don't know if this message is going to land in a general election, but we're not just talking to Conservative Party members. Can it translate?
It's a very good question. So far, I would say that anybody who tells you that they know is lying. Because first, we don't know. The numbers that we have since the election, since the convoy, basically, that Pierre Poilievre started his leadership campaign, federally, the Conservatives are not up compared to the 2021 election. They're around 32 or 33%. They're still strong in their base. Maybe they're up a little bit in Ontario and in Atlantic Canada. But even though this massive enrollment of new members for the Conservative have been going on the past few months, voting intentions have barely moved. And so it could be a very local effect. It could be convincing those who are already convinced to vote Conservative and not bringing new people into the fold. The Conservatives need to bring new voters, especially in urban Canada, which have been these struggles since the Harper era. And so unless I see numbers that show the Conservatives leading in Ontario, making a few gains in Quebec and even in BC, it's still the status quo. The best friend of the Conservatives is time, of course, because the Liberals, the wear and tear of time, we see it happening. Very few prime ministers who have gone for a fourth election have won it. So the wear and tear of time will at some point take its toll on Justin Trudeau and the Liberals.
Well, yeah, let's wrap with that. Like, is Justin Trudeau in trouble, or do you even? I mean, a lot of times politicians will want to sort of leave on their own terms too, right? I mean, what's he going to be? He'll be like mid to late 40s kind of thing. He's been the 3-term Prime Minister of Canada. I'm sure he could sit on some boards and do some speeches and make $3 million a year. And I mean, he doesn't have to continue to accumulate gray hairs. What do you think happers with the Liberals with this government?
On his hunting wall, he could have, of course, Erin O'Toole, Andrew Scheer, and Mr. Harper,
sure,
saying, "I beat those guys. I'm going to leave in the sunset." He could do that, but there's something with Justin Trudeau that, historically, at least, anytime we have underestimated him, he has won. And so I'm not saying it's going to last forever, of course, but the numbers right now show that the Liberals are holding steady at around 30 to 32% of voting intentions. That's good enough for minority win. Perhaps you will get a boost in the economy once this inflation crisis goes away. 2025 is a long time away. So again, we do not know, but I could see it either way. He could decide to go for a fourth and make history, or he could decide, you know what, I've had enough of this. I've been here 10 years. Have a great day. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, nothing would surprise me. This freedom convoy, you touched on it, and I don't want to leave this interview without asking you about it. A lot of people, and including guests on this show over the past couple of weeks, had said, well, we're kind of waiting to see what happens on July 1st in Ottawa, or what July 1st looks like in Ottawa. Quite frankly, it could be another shit show. What are you expecting, and what would you read into what may or may not develop?
Well, politically, I think they have to be very careful to not, the backfire could be strong. Let's remember that Justin Trudeau actually looked good in the campaign with people threw rocks at him. So he was able to just turn and say, look, this is what I'm fighting against. And so they have to be very careful not to overplay their hand. And Poilievre has to be very careful, because if he endorses them publicly or whatever comment he makes supporting those people, it's going to be part of the Liberal attack ad in 2025 or 2024 or whenever the federal election will be held. So everybody is playing very lightly on eggshells. Again, if I don't want to get into this because I'm a poll analyst, but if the Ottawa police had done anything in February, I don't think it would have lasted that long. Well, let's wait and see if they wait that long in this time in July.
Yeah, good stuff. Philippe Fournier, a founder of 338 Canada, a poll analyst, and obviously a pundit as well. You can read his work in Politico and L'Actualité, and maybe you'll wind up in his class studying astrophysics. Who knows? It's really great to get you on the show, my man. Thanks for doing it.
Merci beaucoup, Ryan. Talk to you soon. Take care.
You bet. Can I say it's a weird thing to say right after you do? What a beautiful accent.
I love it.
Like, absolutely beautiful accent.
Why do I trust what he says even more? Because of the accent.
It's just it's just a whole, anyway, I digress. My mom was a French teacher, so she spoke fluent French when we were young, and I wish I would have done a better job of keeping up with it. 2 regrets in life. My relative inability to speak French, and the fact that I lost the ability for all intents and purposes to play piano. Studied piano, practiced it many hours as a youth.
Can you rile up the keys?
Well, I got up to my grade 8 in Royal Conservatory, and then studied a little bit of playing by ear.
Can you rock the keys?
I can play like the first 8 bars of the Cheers theme song. Where everybody knows your name, then so you play the first 8 bars at a party, and then people go, "Oh wow!" and then they come over, and then you go, "No, that's all I know."
At the end of a party, I can see you playing this at like a dingy bar at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, kind of. Is there something that you learned as a kid that you lost as
clarinet?
An adult?
Yeah,
clarinet.
Yeah, I played that through like middle school and the first year of high school, and I kind of wish I hadn't given it up because I was pretty good. A little bit of saxophone too, because that's some people kind of graduate from clarinet to saxophone.
Saxophone is always the cool kids.
Yeah, you want to get to sax, right? So you can Kenny G it. Yeah.
Do you think if you picked up a clarinet today that you could play a little you could play like Three Blind Mice?
Same thing with you. Like I could probably rile a couple tunes up. But
is Three Blind Mice an offensive song now?
Why?
I don't know. Actually, why am I getting into this? Why am I unnecessarily
because
getting
of disabilities? Or
well, the word blind, but actually blind people say it's like deaf.
Yeah,
people say deaf. Mm-hmm. It's not like hearing impaired. I had a fascinating conversation with somebody about that once. Don't take it from us though. Want to talk to people with lived experience. It's kind of the whole purpose of the show. How did we go from that was a quick here to there?
It was.
talking about federal politics into offensive children's nursery rhymes and band class in grade 6. Love it. Coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to continue the conversation around Indigenous perspective in business. In our hometown, Edmonton's Chamber of Commerce introducing yesterday an elder in residence. And we're going to get to speak with her, Irene Morin, from Enoch Cree Nation, as well as the CEO of the Edmonton Chamber, Jeffrey Sundquist. That coming up in just a moment. These conversations are happening because sponsors find great value in that art of conversation. They want to see people talking about things that matter. That includes the team at Grand Dog Essentials, quality raw food, amazing partners with Real Talk, and I'm so excited. They've got a foursome at the tournament tomorrow. We're going to see them out at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. Can't wait for it. A family-owned business that does to-your-door deliveries of quality raw dog food weekly. That's what we feed our dogs, our family members. You can find them online at granddog.ca. You can check out what they offer. The shop link is great, and not just the quality raw food, but the supplements as well. And maybe even how you feed your dog. You got to check out the links. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The promo code REALTALK gets you 10% off your first-time order. There's a great blog resource there if you're wondering, well, I keep hearing about raw dog food, but I don't know if it's the right fit for our pup. You can do some research there online, some great points their team makes again at granddog.ca. At Infinity Healthcare, they are in the business of providing trustworthy, perfect fit home care. You go, well, perfect fit. That's a bold claim. How do they achieve that? Their team has this personality matching service. They understand that a lot of times, your loved one requires a visitor, maybe it's a daily basis, the home care services they're getting, maybe it's a weekly basis, whatever the custom need is, you go, but it's not a good fit, right? Maybe my mom speaks Cantonese or my father only speaks Spanish, and we need a home care provider that can respect that and communicate with them, right? We haven't been able to find that. That's what Infinity does. They'll find your perfect fit today. You can see them online at infinity-8.ca. We know that cost of living is up. That's no secret. Inflation is getting to levels we haven't seen since like the 1970s, 1980s. And so here on Real Talk, always want to let you know how you can keep a few extra bucks in your jeans, and that includes with your utilities. Most of us don't have a choice. We're going to be paying for internet, electricity, natural gas, right? Especially if you're a homeowner. You're going to want to visit parkpower.ca today. If you haven't already brought your business over there, you can bundle those 3 services and save a whole ton on admin fees. 10% of their proceeds, their profits on electricity go back to nonprofits, to charities in their community. We love that angle of Park Power. You don't usually hear utility companies talking about that. And of course, when you sign up, the promo code 2022-REALTALK gets you $70 off your first bill from Park Power. You can find them online today. Park Power and Kubi Energy are cooperating. We've told you about this before. Kubi, you can go online right now, kubienergy.ca, and get a free solar quote. It'll pop right up on your screen, a free appraisal. If you want to see the work that they're doing first, you can check out the drop-down link, their products and services, home, commercial, industrial, agricultural, solar. And then once your installation's done, when your system's generating more power than you need, like this time of year, Johnny, we get longest day of the year yesterday, sunlight until like 11 o'clock. Unbelievable. Your system's generating more than you need. You can sell it back. Park Power will buy it back, and they'll pay you more than the big guys do. They guarantee it. So there's great partnerships here with Kubi Energy and Park Power, and we're happy to tell you all about it. We're going to get out to the mountains in just a little bit with MyJasper Memories, but first, it's a real honor to be able to connect with our next 2 guests. The Edmonton Chamber of Commerce introducing its elder in residence. Irene Morin is an elder of the Enoch Cree Nation. She's a survivor of the Blue Quills Indian Residential School in Alberta. Credits the institution for providing her with an educational foundation. I want to ask Irene about that. Her extensive career includes working in the 1960s for what was then the Department of Indian Affairs, later for the Edmonton Separate School Board, Native Counseling Services of Alberta, the Native Friendship Centre, the Senate of Canada in Ottawa, and for the Enoch Cree Nation for more than 3 decades. In 2017, she received both the Queen Elizabeth Golden Jubilee Medal and the Senate of Canada 150th Anniversary Medal. A remarkable career. Jeffrey Sundquist joins us, the president and CEO of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. Now, he's had the unique opportunity to work internationally through his career, successfully representing Alberta's policy, trade, investment and reputational interests across Europe in particular, is Alberta's senior diplomat appointed to Canada's High Commission in London. He's worked in the Middle East, in North Africa, Asia, the U.S., and across Europe. He's got a good sense of how international business happens. To the both of you, welcome to Real Talk. Thank you for making time for us this morning. Irene, what an interesting opportunity for you. You've worked in legislation, you've worked in government, you've worked in business as an elder in residence for a chamber of commerce. How will you approach this new opportunity?
Well, good morning, Ryan, and good morning, Jeff. I first of all have to say that I am very honored and very pleased to have been selected as the very first elder in residence with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, and I commend the chamber for reaching out and offering positions such as the elder in residence to the Indigenous community. And I think that with both them, with their office, with their the work that they do in the city of Edmonton, and with our involvement from the Indigenous community, we can. The bridges have been built. It's just that they need to be expanded. We need to work together at both ends, and we both play a very important role in the in speaking about the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. And I am very pleased that they have taken that into consideration and have really offered a good way of bringing us together and working with all the Indigenous communities around the city of Edmonton, and also there are Indigenous communities within the city of Edmonton. There are people who live in certain areas in Edmonton that are predominantly Indigenous in all over, like the south side, north side, east side, west side, everywhere. And I think that sometimes people have a tendency to not maybe think of them as being members of the Edmonton community, but they are, even though they are maybe registered at a First Nations community somewhere else. But they have being in residence in the city of Edmonton, having a residence in the city of Edmonton means that they are members of the community of Edmonton.
We've had some interesting conversations. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, spoke with Sage Morin, who's embarking on a pro wrestling career, in fact, and when she provided her biography for us, how she'd like to be introduced, Irene, just like you're saying, she said, I'm a proud member of Saddle Lake Cree Nation and the Edmonton Urban Indigenous Community, all capitalized. And I thought that was an interesting perspective, very telling, in fact. And we also spoke with Chief Billy Morin just a short time ago, who, of course, you know well, Enoch Cree Nation. And he talked as well about the idea of, and he believes that it needs to happen, urban reserves, and making a move to that type of support network, and obviously everything that would come with that sense of community. Irene, I want to ask you about your perspective in business in just a second, but Jeffrey, let's point out that as president and CEO of the Chamber, not an accident, yesterday the announcement was made on National Indigenous Peoples Day. Why is this a priority for the Chamber?
Well, Ryan, and thank you for having us on. Edmonton has the second highest Indigenous population, and the Edmonton Chamber has been advocating for an inclusive economic recovery, particularly with the with this pandemic as we exit out of the pandemic, hopefully. And so, with this inclusive recovery, we really want to be leaders. We want to lead by example, and it's our responsibility as the voice of business to advocate, educate, and connect the business community. And this is a key element where we can lead, learn, and share for the business community. And so we can unlock the vast potential of Indigenous people and how our Indigenous community can play a leading role in our economic recovery. So, this is an opportunity for us to use our platform and our influence to assist non-Indigenous businesses to learn, be better, and really recognize the opportunities and the untapped potential in the Indigenous community.
Irene, we had an interesting conversation yesterday. I actually loved it with Shae Bird. I'm not sure if you know Shae, but he's the CEO of Indigenous Tourism Alberta. And he was talking and just about, obviously many opportunities, from an economic standpoint, from an employment standpoint for many First Nations, many Indigenous communities across the province. But he said, there's not sort of a cookie cutter formula that you can impose on every community to say this is how it works, or this is how it works best, or here's a business plan for everybody. And he shone the light, some insight. If people want to go back and listen, it's right around the 14-minute mark of yesterday's show. It stuck with me. He talks about building relationships and how Indigenous communities or Indigenous people might approach business a little bit differently, different motivating factors, different concepts of what a partnership should look like, different priorities. Is that kind of like a general observation you can make about business relationships and commerce through an Indigenous lens, or would you flag that? What would be your response to that concept?
Well, I would be of the same opinion as Mr. Bird that, business, we have a lot of Indigenous business people in the province and across Canada. And I think we all aim, the business people, the Indigenous people all aim for the same goals as the mainstream society, and that is to provide for their families, and the big businesses provide jobs for people who need to feed their families, need to take care of their families. And I think it's important that we understand one another, that, there are different ways that we handle things that the mainstream society does, different things a little differently. But I think basically we all have the same common goals.
When you talk, Jeffrey, about, the opportunity in the concept or the context rather of economic recovery and sort of kickstarting the economy again. And it's interesting, isn't it? There's these parallel storylines. Number one, a lot of people are really concerned financially about what's going on right now and inflation and, obviously all the stuff that can provide a little bit of a tightening chest type stressful scenario for people, including business owners. And then we also look at the optimism that people have, and we look at employment numbers in Canada, and they are bouncing back. And there's the odd announcement, with a couple of $1 billion of investment here, or a few $100 million investment, and we can go, okay, it's starting to happen again. When you look at the strategy moving forward from the chamber, when you look at perhaps the expertise you hope to glean from Irene and her perspective, and then apply that to building relationships moving forward, where do you see the most room for growth or potential? Where has business maybe held itself back in past? Have you identified a few key areas?
I think, Ryan, we're going to be learning a great deal from Elder Irene, and we're delighted that she's with us to help lead us. But really, it's about awareness and helping organizations be better and helping them understand how they can engage with the Indigenous community and the skills that are embedded within them. And so providing that perspective and awareness is really our first step. We've got a lot to learn ourselves. But we thought this is a really good opportunity to better engage and share information and awareness of the opportunities and work with post-secondaries, work with the business Indigenous business associations and so forth. So there's nothing specific that we're going to tackle right away, but we're going to take Elder Irene's guidance on where we think those opportunities are. But we can use again our platform to help share that information, hopefully get some initial quick wins to get that engagement with the broader business community. And we've taken some Indigenous awareness education here with our team as one of the initial steps for us to move on this, as my friend Rocky Sinclair had Access, which is the Indigenous business and professional association, this real path to shared prosperity. And we want to play a leading role at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, and Elder Irene is going to help us do that.
Irene, do you already have something circled? Are you like, do you already know where you're going to start? Do you come into this with a few observations, challenges, suggestions, mandates that you don't need time to figure them out? You already know some ground that can be gained here, some progress that can be made?
Well, I was just officially, I just officially became the elder in residence yesterday. Prior to that, I've had conversations with Alex from the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, and we have, I guess for a moment, I thought that I'm very busy. I do a lot of volunteer work all over the place. And so I thought, well, that's going to cut down on my volunteering, but that's okay. This is something I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
This is something that is needed by the Indigenous community. And I was just thinking that, you know, we do bring a lot of money into the city of Edmonton from different functions that are held by Indigenous organizations. And I would say millions and millions of dollars. And, you know, we have the Alberta Native Indigenous Games every year for the last 15 years. We've had the World Indigenous Games in 2017. And, you know, the Indigenous communities from all over the province of Alberta and Saskatchewan come to Edmonton to hold their conferences and all kinds of functions. So we have made I would say, a substantial contribution to the city of Edmonton. And I guess one of the things that I mentioned yesterday, because I attended the ball in April at the Edmonton Conference Center. I was invited by the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, and I went and I had a ball, and we had a great time. And then I mentioned to them yesterday, I said, well, the ball was at the Shae or the Edmonton Conference Center in April. I said, next year you might have your ball at the Entertainment Center at the River Cree Resort and Casino. And I didn't get an answer, but I think that that's a possibility. So the invitation is there. You know, come and spend some time with us at the River Cree, and you will find that our staff here do wonderful work, and you would be happy for anybody who wants to come to the River Cree.
The staff and the team at the River Cree, no strangers to big events, Irene. I've been out there tons, but that's where I got to interview Jay Leno in the relatively early stages of my TV career. So every time I step back into that venue, I take a minute to remember. Let me ask you this, Irene. In closing, yesterday was National Indigenous Peoples Day, and it was a day to learn and to observe and to share and to communicate with one another. Obviously, for non-Indigenous people, the day may have a different mandate or a different meaning than to Indigenous people, for sure. Probably the most obvious thing I've said this year. You are a survivor of the Blue Quills Indian Residential School. Obviously, your public service has extended your career over a number of decades. You have a personal story that I'm sure that drives you and drives your volunteerism and everything else. What were you focusing on yesterday, and what were you challenging others to focus on throughout the day?
Well, I wasn't really challenging anybody to focus on anything. The only thing that I did mention yesterday was I talked a little bit about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, their calls to action. And somebody did ask me, how could we get ourselves involved and get to be like better, how can we better understand the Indigenous people? And I said, look at all the calls to action. And I said, read them. And if any of them, grabs your interest or something that you can do, then pick it up and do it, you know. And I like to think that, National Indigenous Peoples Day, which was formerly called National Aboriginal Day, until we became Indigenous. But I like to think of it as a day that reminds everybody that, hey, look at history does not include that much information about the Indigenous people of this country. And that I think the National Indigenous Peoples Day is a reminder to all of us that we need to acknowledge one another. We need to acknowledge the fact that, there were Indigenous people in this country, on this land, in the land of the treaty, in Alberta, it's Treaty 6, 7, and 8 area, and Edmonton sits on Treaty 6 territory. And, it really touches me every time I go to a function and I hear, like yesterday, Jeff acknowledged we are on Treaty 6 territory. And it might not mean that much to other people, but to quite a few of us, and I would say probably people my age, will take that as, good. It's good that they are acknowledging that this is our territory. I think that more people need to be educated about the history of the Indigenous people, and with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce acknowledging that they are willing to learn and have been learning about the history of the Indigenous people of this area is really a great start.
That's Irene Morin, elder at Enoch Cree Nation and the first elder in residence at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. Also joining us today, the president and CEO of the Chamber, Jeffrey Sundquist. Thank you to the both of you for sharing your morning with us. And Irene, congratulations on this opportunity. Obviously, I know that there are going to be many, many people eager to see the stamp that you'll put on that organization.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thanks.
You bet. You can check out more online about that announcement. Let us know what you think about this talk at RyanJesperson.com. Has your organization, has your community adopted that idea or created that type of a role in your community? Have you welcomed an elder in residence? We'd love to hear your story. Oftentimes, the beauty of shows like this is that we can facilitate these ongoing conversations where one idea might build off another. The next thing you know, we're broadening our understanding, and that's, of course, our mandate. I mean, essentially, that's really what this is all about, right? Is better understanding other people, better understanding issues. Can we, I know we're going to get out to Jasper in just a second. I'm going to call an audible here because we're talking about following up and developing storylines. And we've heard from or seen from a couple of recent guests on the show, and a really cool update from last night. Kelsie Snow, you remember Kelsie joined us?
Of course.
She's the founder and the host of the Sorry, I'm Sad podcast. Just a remarkable person. Her husband, Chris, is the assistant general manager of the Calgary Flames, diagnosed with ALS. Chris is just an amazing human, and the whole family was out there at the NHL Awards last night, and I wanted to show you this photo. Kelsie posts this with her two kids. If you're listening on the podcast, it's her two kids dressed up, looking just absolutely amazing. Look at her little guy with his beautiful tie, her daughter all dressed up at the NHL Awards, and that is the 2022 Norris Trophy winner.
MVP.
Colorado Avs defenseman, most valuable defenseman anyway, Cale Makar.
Yeah.
Who's got game 4 tonight in Tampa. But look at that. Cale Makar, of course, originally from Calgary, and the Snow kids got to rub shoulders with him last night. They were up on stage announcing the Norris Trophy, and just amazing to see that family. We just wish them so many memorable and wonderful moments together as that unit of 4. And then we get a message. How cool is this? From, you remember Raija-Liisa Schmidt-Teigen that joined us on the show, like live from the Middle East? Right? She checked in, and I'm trying to remember. I feel like an idiot now. Where was she talking to us from? Was she in Damascus?
I think she was, yeah.
I think she was right in Damascus when she talked to us. It was on May 31st. If you missed that interview, the work that she's doing over there, her insight into refugee camps and Canada's immigration policies, and wow, such a fascinating conversation. She followed up, and Real Talkers have been in touch with her. I threw it out there kind of at the end of the interview. I said, if you want to connect with Raija-Liisa and learn more about what she does, just shoot us an email. We'll make that connection. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, our inbox is just like, wham! People were like, put us in touch with her. So she's got an update for you. Check these out. She said, she said, I thought Real Talkers might enjoy this. She says, we're en route to Aleppo. She sent us these photos on Monday. So this is just about 48 hours ago. She said, here's some lessons on how to fuel your car when there's no fuel at the gas stations. Here's how they're doing it. So step 1, you pull up at a roadside stand. You can see there's a scale there, kind of a rudimentary type scale, and you've got some battered old jerry cans. She says step number 2, you weigh the gas. Step number 3, you can choose from your very own selection of handmade funnels. These are made from, as you can see, sort of pieced together, held together by duct tape. Ingenuity there on display. She says, no, step number 4, pour the fuel in your car. This looks like a big bottle of maybe distilled water at some point like that, full of fuel. She says you fuel your car and you are on your way again, kind of doing it like 5 to 10 to 20 liters at a time.
Crazy.
So that's how they're making it happen. These are the boots on the ground. They're on their way to Aleppo to continue with their humanitarian work. And you just think of like the little problem, like just the moments of problem solving, the moments of making things happen, the movers and shakers all around the world. And we're so proud to call them real talkers and to know that they're part of this community. So a shout out to Kelsie and to Raija-Liisa, 2 recent guests on the show. Every Wednesday, it's our pleasure to take you out to the mountains. Well, let's be honest, it's selfish for us too. We love getting out there, reminding ourselves about the healing power of the mountains, the sort of soul-filling impact that you can find in Jasper National Park. We call it MyJasper Memories, and it's presented every Wednesday by our friends at Tourism Jasper. And this week, we want to shine the spotlight on a video series. You can subscribe to Tourism Jasper's YouTube channel. They feature residents of Jasper and what drew them there, what keeps them there. And I want to show you just a snippet. You can watch the full video yourself by subscribing to their YouTube as mentioned, but this is the story of Stephanie Sophocleous.
Being able to just sit quietly and breathe in nature. There's something powerful about being surrounded by the mountains. I feel a connection to something else, something that's bigger than me. Part of the reason that keeps us here in Jasper is the sense of freedom and not feeling confined to a space. So many places that you can go and find a quiet spot. My name is Stephanie Sophocleous, and I'm a yoga teacher in Jasper, Alberta. And I've lived here for almost 19 years. I live with an autoimmune disease known as ankylosing spondylitis, and it's a form of arthritis. With this autoimmune disease, it attacks my hips, pelvis, and spine, and it makes it really hard to move some days.
It's a really powerful story, Steph's story, and over the years, I encourage you to check out the full video. You'll find how she's found peace within her body and balance in her life. And the story, the video vignette, it's less than 4 minutes, follows her decade of discovery. You can see how her medical journey interwove with her exploration of Jasper National Park and how she, like so many others, finds healing in nature. You can learn more at jasper.travel/venture-beyond. We're showing a bunch of photos here. She's out on her paddleboard. She's climbing. She's running. I find just like looking at these pictures brings me some peace. I don't know about you, Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely incredible. And then don't forget, also coming up in Jasper in less than a week, Symphony Under the Sun. An amazing event at the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge on the shores of Lac Beauvert. You still have time to get your tickets. There's the dinner and the concert package. You can get the VIP room package. You can stay on the property. It'll blow your mind. The Edmonton Symphony Orchestra out there with this cathedral behind them, this mountain range. Whew, beautiful stuff. Jasper.travel/real talk for more details on Symphony Under the Sun. And then, of course, check out that Venture Beyond series as well. MyJasper Memories is presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper. Feeling like it's been too long since we've been out in the mountains. We need to get our butts back out there.
Yeah, it invigorates. Yeah.
We need to take the show on the road, I'm thinking.
Oh.
Hey? Take the show on the road. Maybe do like a Real Talk audience event out in Jasper.
Means you go and I stay.
No.
Oh, we go together?
We'll just take the whole show on the road. Once we get our tour bus completed with the built-in studio inside so we can do our cross-Canada tour, it's going to be fantastic. Can't wait for that. It's on the list, John.
Great.
It's on the list. Now, before we wrap for the day, we want to let you know, of course, that you have until, and it depends on when you're listening to this, I won't say the hours, I'll just say the deadline, 5 p.m. Mountain Time tonight is our absolute concrete set-in-stone cutoff for registration for the Real Talk Golf Classic. We'd love to, I mean, obviously the tournament is tomorrow. It's Thursday, June 23rd. We'd love to see you there. I think we have room for one more foursome now. So if you feel prompted by this, if you'd like to be there with us, you go to RyanJasperson.com and you click on the events link, and that's where you can register for the Real Talk Golf Classic. Mike and his team at Eden Landscaping are going to be out there. I'm really looking forward to that. They're just, I mean, Mike's smile is like, it's the guy is an absolute beauty. You got to kind of meet him to know, and it's no surprise once you do why so many people have trusted Eden Landscaping to bring their outdoor space to life. The business has been family owned for more than 20 years, and if you visit them online right now at landscapeedmonton.ca, I want to refer you to their portfolio. You can check out some of the stuff that they do. I know what a lot of people think of landscaping. If you're like me, you might have a bit of like a pigeonholed concept of what landscape architects and landscape artists can do. Landscaping contractors, kind of go, you replace our sod and put in a couple nice trees and some, nah. We're retaining walls and water features and outdoor kitchens and all kinds of stuff. Heck, you want to build a bird sanctuary in your backyard? They can do it. Just check them out online, landscapeedmonton.ca. What I like is you can see the diversity of their work. So you want like ultra modern, they can do it. You want natural, they can do it. You want to draw pollinators, you want to do this sort of urban butterfly approach in your front yard, they can do it. Eden Landscaping, a proud partner of Real Talk, and that relationship goes both ways. We're also going to see St. Albert and Sherwood Dodge out at the tournament tomorrow on the par 3 14th hole. There's going to be a Jeep parked there, John. A Jeep that's going to be won by whoever hits a hole-in-one. I want to manifest that. Let's see it happen.
Another prize I can't win.
I know. Sorry, pal. What can I say? And this isn't some BS giveaway where you get the car for a year. You win the Jeep. You win it, period, courtesy of our friends at Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. And they're going to be sharing that T-Box 14. I think the marshals are going to have to move this hole along because everybody's going to be partying and everybody's going to want to check out the Jeep that's parked there. And then Friesen Brothers is dragging their big grill out there too. They're doing sausage on a bun on the T-Box. So this is going to be absolutely fantastic. Ivan's sausage is only available at Friesen Brothers. It's a Sunday morning tradition in our house.
Are you sure about this one?
I'm sure that it is only available at Friesen Brothers because it's a proprietary recipe. Like Ivan's a real guy.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the thing about Friesen Brothers. It's not some BS like, some big corporate, they invent some, Grandma Lee. Why did I take a shot at that sandwich company? Grandma Lee might be a real person. I take that back, Grandma Lee. But all these businesses, they invent the personality. Yeah. Mr. Clean's a better example. There is no Mr. Clean, but there is an Ivan.
Mr. Noodles. I'm pretty sure
he's a real guy. And those are also available at Friesen Brothers. But when they talk about Grandma's Tort, or when they talk about Granny's recipes on certain things, the Christmas cake and everything else in the bakery, and these are real people. It's a family-owned business, and these recipes have been around for decades. It's just part of the magic of Friesen Brothers in 16 Alberta communities. You can find them online at friesen.com, and we're just over a week away from 15% off on the first of the month, any grocery purchase over $75. Our friends at Local Environmental present Trash Talk every week here on the show. Trash Talk's going to be tomorrow because it's a short week. You and I know we'd be dragging our asses on Friday morning after the golf tournament, so we're just not showing up. There's no show on Friday.
Day off.
We want to leave it all on the course Thursday afternoon. And Lonnie, we have your trash talk. Lonnie, we have your trash talk. Daryl, your cheeseburger's ready. Lonnie, we have your trash talk. If you want to join Lonnie in the queue, you can send us an email. Get your gripe, your vent off your chest to talk at RyanJasperson.com, and keep it local. If you're in the business of maybe hospitality, maybe you're in the restaurant industry, maybe you're an entrepreneur, a retailer, you're currently paying what feels like too much for your garbage and recycling collection, go to localenvironmental.ca today. They'll compete for your business, I guarantee it. They're always broadening their footprints. They're in Sturgeon County now. They've taken over Calahoo Waste, and they're working on new relationships out there, big industrial ones too, by the way. And of course, To our friends in Saskatchewan, our Real Talkers out there, local waste proudly in Regina for a long time now. You've probably seen their green bins. You're looking for water hauling, fencing, portable toilets, whatever. Make local environmental your choice. And John, I had somebody approach me yesterday and tell me that he only signed up for the Real Talk Golf Classic. He says, I'm not much of a golfer. He says, I really don't know a lot about the sport, he said, but the double dilly shooters that John keeps talking about brought me there. I said, well, I got to be honest with you. I said, pal, his name's Troy. I'm super excited he's coming. He's bringing his group out there. I said, Troy, it's the dilly bar shooter. I said, John is calling it the double dilly shooter.
Because I always eat 2 dilly bars when I go to Dairy Queen.
You double down on the dillies.
I'm going to have to talk to them. It's going to be a 2-for-1 deal, or we got to increase the size?
Well, Troy's wondering if his group is going to get the double dilly shooter treatment. And I said, well, you're going to have to ask our friends from the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. We'll see. The blizzard of the month this month is the caramel drumstick with peanuts and the drumstick with peanuts blizzard. I had one myself just a couple of weeks ago. I can attest to the fact that it is nothing shy of heavenly. You can find it at the Dairy Queens of Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. And when you pass through their drive-thru, when you see them in store, you let them know that Real Talk sent you. Would you? All right. Now, tomorrow's a big day for us, and we're really excited, but not just because of the Real Talk Golf Classic, not just because we're going to raise tens of thousands of dollars for the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship, but also because we're going to continue to have conversations that matter here. There's a show coming tomorrow morning to you live, and we'll kick it off with a conversation with a former cabinet minister. She's just walked away from that post to seek the leadership of Alberta's United Conservative Party, and some are calling her an early front runner. We'll talk to Rebecca Schultz. We'll ask her about growing up in Saskatchewan, what drew her to Alberta, and what would the party look like under her watch. Plus, more of your emails to talk at ryanjesperson.com. We'll see you soon, Real Talkers.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer, Josh Dunford. Technical producer, John Hicks. General Manager, Katie Cook-Shivers. Account Coordinator, Lawrence Derlego. Human Resources, Lena Shepard. Website design, Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is the flagship property of Relay Communications Group Incorporated. All rights reserved. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.